Okay, we're going to take a look at a few other games. The Pittsburgh Browns game, this is a rematch of an earlier game this year. And if you recall, Pittsburgh took a big early lead, and I believe the score was something like 27-3 or in that range. And I really believe they took their foot off the pedal. And Cleveland came bouncing back, and it got real tight late. And the final score of that game was 30-27 after Cleveland had tied the game. Pittsburgh is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. I mean, they win 17-9 last week at Jacksonville after getting shocked at home against Tampa Bay. This team is just not playing the type of ball that we expect from Pittsburgh. But they've been mediocre the last couple of years, and although many of us thought they were going to bounce back with a big year, they have not. Collectively, defensively, they're 14th in the league. Offensively, 18th in the league. Takes them 17 yards to score a point. They give up a point every 15 yards. That's a very negative number, but their yards per play are good, 6.4 to 5.7. Rushing, 137, give up 100. Passing game is kind of average. The Cleveland Browns, this is kind of a cardiac bunch. They lose by 3, they win by 2, they lose by 2, they win by 1. Last week they set a record coming back from the biggest road deficit in NFL history and came back from a 26-point deficit to win the game. Pretty remarkable. They're running the ball pretty well, 142, but they give up 152 on the ground. That's negative. They're dead even in the yards per point category, and they're a little bit behind in yards per play. This is a series that's totally dominated by Pittsburgh as far as who's going to win the game. The over and unders generally under, but the first game went over, and the way that Cleveland is playing, Brian Hoyer is playing very well for Cleveland. They're running the ball well, as I mentioned, but their defense has really been giving up a lot of yards and a lot of points. And that would indicate current form, you would have to look at the over. But when you look at the history, this is when you get one of those situations where you just can't make up your mind what's going to happen. 6 of the last 7 games have gone under the total. And like I said, Pittsburgh has owned this team. But things are changing. And this team believes in themselves. They got revenge from the first game. But remember, they've had revenge a million times against Pittsburgh, and it just hasn't worked. The Jacksonville-Tennessee game, I can't really talk much about this. These teams are absolutely horrendous. At this point, one of these teams is going to probably wake up and start to play well. One thing about Jacksonville, they've gone over the total 4 out of 5 games, 3-0 on the road. And other than the Tennessee victory at Kansas City to open the season, they have lost 4 in a row. Chicago at Atlanta is an interesting game. The total in this game is very high, 53.5. It opened Atlanta 3 and 53.5, and we're not looking for much difference here. That's still about the same. Atlanta is a little bit 3 and a hook at times. The situation with Atlanta is they've played well at home. They came back from a big deficit against the Saints, and they won that game. Then they went on the road to Cincinnati and got crushed. They came home to Tampa Bay and just absolutely destroyed Tampa Bay. Then they went on the road for 2 games against Minnesota with the backup quarterback, lost that game pretty badly. Last week they were up 20-10 against the Giants and blew it, giving up 20 unanswered points, lost the game 30-20. Dead even in the yards per point area, 29th in the league in giving up points, 3rd in scoring. You definitely have to look at this game as an over. The problem is the total is so high. And when you look at the Chicago Bears, this is another mess of a team. Their defense last year was horrendous. The last two games have given up 38 and 31 points to Green Bay and Carolina. Now they're going on the road. This is their second straight road game. They went to Carolina. This is Atlanta. Then they had a home game against Green Bay, which they absolutely played horribly. Before that, they were on the road to San Francisco and the Jets. They won both of those. So when you look at the road games, I mean, they're 2-1 straight up. But second straight game on the road, getting Atlanta coming back off the road, where they played two straight road games, losing to both the Minnesota and the Giants. This looks like an Atlanta team that's going to play well at home and pretty poorly on the road. The Bears, I don't know what to make of the Bears. Like I said, it looks like an overplay, but the total is already allowed for that, so there may not be any value in playing the total. Atlanta has this home-road dichotomy, and you might think that expect that Atlanta would bounce back. They do have the offense, that's for sure, but so does the Bears. So it should be an interesting matchup. Detroit and Minnesota. Detroit has injuries, and Minnesota is expecting Bridgewater back. Detroit, surprisingly, has gone under 4 straight games. This is not the offensive juggernaut that we expected this year. They scored 35, 7, 19, 24, and 14 in the 5 games that they played, only going over in the first game. They are not as effective offensively as we thought they would be or what they have been in the past. They're second in the league in defense, though, only giving up about 16 points a game, but scoring less than 20 points per game. Run the ball kind of ineffectively, only 3 yards per carry, 83 yards on the ground per game. That's pretty bad. So that's a negative, and when you get Minnesota, you're going to have a team here that runs the ball a little bit better. You get 130 yards. They got the rookie quarterback who played well in his first game. So we don't really know what to expect from a rookie quarterback. But Detroit's the road favorite here, and I'm not too sure that's the right situation. This Detroit team is not that solid at this moment. They lost to Buffalo after a big lead last week, and that was to the backup quarterback, albeit he has a lot of experience, Kyle Orton. I'm not too sure that they have the right favorite in this game. Carolina visits Cincinnati. Cincinnati got blasted on national TV last week against the very difficult to understand New England Patriots. But, you know, Cincinnati has been devastating at home for the last couple of years. When they play at home, they win and they cover, beating Atlanta and Tennessee in accomplishing both those things so far this year. On the road, they did beat Baltimore last week. They lost to New England. 7-point line, though, that's tough, and A.J. Green might be out for them. So that's a difficult situation. But Carolina, on the other hand, played at Tampa Bay, won a game by 6, played at Baltimore, lost by 28. They did beat Chicago last week, coming back, and they won that game 31-24. High scoring there. Their last 3 games have gone over the total. Cincinnati went over on Monday night, but before that they were 0-3 to the under. You got some, interesting games. New England at Buffalo, division rivalry, big situations. Is another one of those kind of Pittsburgh-Cleveland things where the same team wins every year, and it's usually New England. Most of the time, though, the last 5 times, 4 of them have gone. 5 times, 4 of them have gone over the total. You wouldn't expect that. You got Kyle Orton for Buffalo at quarterback. They have a decent running game. Their defense is playing pretty well. They're 5th in the league in giving up points, 28th in the league in scoring. And every game so far this year, they have gone under the total. Not sure what to expect from New England. They got the tight end offense going for them last week, going down the seams. Cincinnati didn't seem prepared or well coached, which is typical for Cincinnati in primetime games. So I don't know what to make of this. I'd like Buffalo in this spot, but when you look at these histories with these teams that dominate, at some point they're going to change because history always does change. I would be on Buffalo or nobody in this spot. Baltimore, Tampa Bay. Baltimore really did not play well at Indianapolis last week. The Indy defense or the Baltimore offense, one was good and one was bad, and you can probably guess who. Tampa Bay, since they went to Glennon, who should have been the starting quarterback to begin the year anyway, have looked a little bit better. They almost won last week at the Saints. Go to San Diego Raiders. This is a division game. This is Raiders coming off a bye. I don't know that it matters with this team. It looks like they have a good young quarterback that could develop, but they just changed the coach. Tony Sparano is now the new head coach. Allen has been fired. I'm not sure that you can step in the way of the San Diego team. They just are playing lights out at this point. But Oakland has had a pretty good history of covering against San Diego, and has covered 5-7 of the last 10 times. It's tough laying these numbers on the road against a division rival, but it's kind of like the Denver Jet game. You have a pretty bad football team, and you're asking them to step up with your money behind them. But I'm not going to lay San Diego there either. So probably look. Let me take a look here. You might look to the under in this spot. Pretty ineffective offense for Oakland. They need 21 yards to get a point. And their defense isn't too bad at 14 in that same statistic. You might have an underplay here. They've had some problems with San Diego losing running backs, but they seem to find a new one. I think he played for the University of Buffalo, and he's playing very well. Dallas at Seattle. Well, if Dallas can run the ball, they have a chance. But who runs the ball effectively against Seattle? And this Seattle team has been absolutely devastating, winning and covering at home. And I know the last time they went into overtime against Denver, but remember that game was 17-3. Seattle gave up a safety and then a touchdown and made a very competitive game, took it into overtime. I'm not sure that Tony Romo is Peyton Manning. I'm not sure he can produce that. But they do have a good running game, and they have been playing very well. So I have to give them a little credit, but this is a tough spot. But, we have Seattle coming off the short week going across country after a pretty physical outing against Washington, although the officials made that game a lot closer than it should have been, calling back 3 touchdowns. Dallas, though, went into overtime and had a tough time against Houston after blowing a bit of a lead at the end of the game. That's it for this week. I'm going to... This video has gotten a little too long. So we will see you next week, and make sure you come back to jimfeist.com frequently. We will have picks up for sale all the time. Thank you.